right, Outlaw Radio Live fans. We are live on the air with none other than a hip-hop industry legend, Scott Gordon. How you doing tonight?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing really good, and just like I said before we got on the air, I want to say on behalf of myself, to you and the rest of the audience, I am deeply sorry for that technical difficulty, but we are good to go, and we were live in full effect. So I have to ask, what made you decide to get into the music industry?
Wow, man. Probably when I was like 15. You know, my brother used to be a DJ, and I wanted to have this little party at my house. So, you know, I went out, man, and told a bunch of friends, and it ended up to be like an off-the-hook house party. And I grew up in a small town in Northern California, a place called Vacaville. It's like in the Bay Area. And there was really nothing to do. So I just decided, man, to, you know, start throwing parties. I just knew that it was just a cool way of, you know, getting people together and making some money.
And you know, that's not bad, man. You know, you bring everybody together, and like you said, you get to make money as well, man. It sounds like a great job. In the 1980s, you created your own company called Street Power Promotions and Management. What made you decide to create your own business company?
Well, actually, you know, the first company I had actually was called New West Coast Productions, and it was Gordon Promotions. And that was the first company that I actually really created, but I didn't go down and go get a business license, and I didn't go down and get a checking account, you know. And with that company there, I started managing breakdance groups up in Vacaville, a group called GBC, Galactic Breaking Crew, up in 707 Vacaville, Fairfield. Started doing events with the city, started throwing kid parties, you know, started throwing DJ battles, and, you know, I just wanted to have an entity that people could like get a hold of. And since I was from the West Coast, you know, I wanted everybody to think, you know, that it was something new. So that's why I called it New West Coast Productions. And then later in the 80s, I started Street Power Promotions and Management, which in turn I started managing Rick Rock, the producer, Paris, Conscious Daughters, Pooh Man, ran Scarface Records with that company. And then with New West Coast Productions, I started working with Sway and Tech, the Automator, and, you know, working with Alexander Mejia, LA Dream Team, Rodney Ojo Cooley. I met Easy in the 80s with that company in Vallejo, California, World Class Wrecking Crew. And I was, you know, so I just had this entity that I wanted people to look at. And with Street Power Promotions, I actually went down, got a business license. I was like, I graduated high school in 85, got that business license maybe when I was like 19, and, you know, had a checking account at Bank of America and a credit card, and I was rolling.
Hey, man, that's what's up. And I have to ask, how did you initially get connected with the LA Dream Team? Like, how did you guys first meet?
Oh, wow. Man, I was a little hustler about, you know, records, you know, so I would look on the back of the record or the tape and see what the record company was and see if they had an address or a phone number on the label. And I contacted Rudy Pardee, and I think I was, I might have been maybe 1988, maybe. And I called him up on the phone, and it went directly to Rudy Pardee. I started talking to him, told him I was from the Bay Area, and it was one of my, you know, first rap shows that I did, and I brought him up to the Bay Area for the first time to a club in Hayward that DJ Alexander Mejia was DJing at, and Alexander was an intern at KMEL radio station. Brought him up, was a successful show in Hayward, and then right after that, I brought Rodney Ojo Cooley for the first time. And that was the first time that they ever been to the Bay, and I was the first to bring them out.
And I gotta say, LA Dream Team, absolute talented individuals. Straight up, man, pioneers, most definitely.
Yeah. Rockberry, everlasting bass.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Richie Rich, but we got Richie Rich booked and locked in, I believe, for next month. So it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, I was just with Richie Rich. Matter of fact, on Thanksgiving evening, I was with Ant Banks, Richie Rich, Be Legit, and we were at in Oakland for a cancer raising party for Boo, which is Too Short's manager. He has cancer, so I attended the function, and it was really good. I got pictures. I have to send them to you.
And I do want to say, before we get off that topic, my thoughts and prayers are actually with Too Short's manager, man. That's a really tragic thing. My prayers are hoping that he beats it.
Right, man. It definitely is.
I saw some show you were at as well. I don't know if it's the same show, but you was also with Big Daddy Kane and Slick Rick and whatnot.
Right. One of my nephews up here in Tacoma, Washington, did a concert, and I was part of that concert, helping them out and making sure things went smooth. And it was a great show, man. We had CMG from Conscious Daughters, Funky Expedition. We had Greg Nice and Big Smooth from Nice and Smooth. We had Big Daddy Kane, Slick Rick, and Houdini. And it was an off-the-hook, old-school show, bro. It was a fantastic show.
When I actually seen those pictures he tagged me on Instagram, I was like, yo, man, that guy's lucky. You know, he's chopping it up with Slick Rick, Big Daddy Kane. Like, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was great. You know, I used to work for Def Jam as a street cat back in the 90s, and I didn't get a chance to, but I found my signed 1991 Cold Chillin' autograph from Big Daddy Kane, and I didn't get a chance to bring it to the concert to have him re-sign it, but man, it was great seeing those icons, those legends, those classics.
Oh yeah, hands down, easily Big Daddy Kane, one of the best, hands down. So also in 1984, so going back quite a few years here, you managed and promoted the first ever teen nightclub. What was that experience like, and why did it end up closing?
Man, it was a club called Eruptions, and it was the first teen nightclub in Vacaville, California, actually in all of Solano County. And this high school teacher just realized that there was a shortfall in things for kids to do. So he opened up this teen club. He needed a manager that knew all the kids, and I was popular, you know, in the area. And, you know, I had the breakdance group going, and I had some DJs that I was managing too. And I just decided, you know, to basically force my way into a good situation. You know, there was no alcohol, man, and everything was like daiquiris. He had like the hot dogs, the popcorn, but it was a place for all the kids to meet. Electro hip-hop was hot, bro. Breakdancing was hot. You know, it was a place that we could go, man, battle, you know, other breakdance groups, other pop groups, man, and it was a great thing, and it lasted for maybe close to 2 years, and then after that, man, you know, something happened with the owner of the building, and, you know, things changed, and, you know, once again, we lost out on a good thing.
Honestly, man, it actually sounds pretty fun, to be honest with you guys. So I'm sorry to hear you guys lost that in such a short time. Sorry.
It was, you know, and the only other teen club back then was a place called Second Level in Sacramento, and it was a teen club, man, and it was popping too, man. It was really popping, man, and you know, it was a great thing, and I know that we sort of missed out on talking about Sway and King Tech also, you know, and I know you wanted to mention that too. And I wanted to go into that whole era there when I was with Rodney Ojo Cooley and LA Dream Team, is that when I met King Tech and Sway in the late '80s, I met them through Alexander Mejia, same person, and they were just starting the group. They had the group Flynamic, and it was one of their first shows that they ever did, and you know, they hired me to help promote the party, and you know, it was a great show with, you know, Sway and King Tech, Dan the Automator, Theo Mizahara from KMEL, and Alexander Mejia, and you know, it was Sway and Tech's, you know, first concert, and I actually have the original flyer from that concert, dated back 1988, 89. I have the original flyer.
Man, that is a treasure. So in 1989, you were a part of the first annual All-City Hip-Hop Jam in Newark, California. What was that experience like?
And, you know, I touched on it a little bit with Sway and Tech. As people, or if you're familiar with Sway and Tech, they had a company called All City Records. And they had Sway and King Tech, was called Flynamic, and they started this group, and they had a great buzz in the Bay Area. And it's really funny because I was going through some files again, and I found their first bio that I typed up. And it was done on an Apple II computer, dot metric printer, and it was just history seeing, you know, this bio that I typed up for these young gentlemen. And if people know today, you know, Sway has done really well with his career. Tech has done really well with his career, and they're both icons in the music business, and I was just happy to be there at the start of their career.
That's actually crazy, you know, to be able to find something like that just on your old computer, you know, just start it up and find such an amazing gem like that, especially their first bio.
Right. It was actually a printout. My mom, bless my mom's heart, she's been gone 6 years. She kept this box in her garage. And when she passed away, you know, I got a hold of the box. And my mom kept all of my old party flyers, all of my old concert flyers, you know, just you know, contracts that I had back in the days, business cards. I found my first business card, you know, my second business card, a copy of one of my first checks that I wrote, you know, with my first bank account, you know, so it was just a lot of history, man, in that box.
And speaking of history, man, you've done a lot of different gigs. Like, so far we talked about like a nightclub, we talked about, you know, you doing promoting, opening shows, but also you worked as a radio intern at KMEL in 1990 in San Francisco. What was that experience like, and what made you want to try out radio?
Oh man, once again, my best friend Alexander Mejia, you know, he was a DJ on the station, and the station was called 106 KMEL, the People Station. And back then, the People Station was always out there with the people. And so we created the show called the Party Patrol. And what we did is we got into the KMEL Blazer, and we drove to like house parties, cruises, concerts, you know, functions that were happening, you know, in the community. And we were out there and we were doing live broadcasts, you know, showing the local and showing that the station, you know, was, you know, involved with the community. And a lot of that has changed over the years in regards to radio being part of the community. You don't see radio out as much in the community, doing a lot of community events that aren't really sponsored for the station. Like, we just showed up, like, out the blue. Like, if you had a house party, we knew about your house party, we were coming to your house party. You know, that we just showed up, and that was the surprise. And it made the listeners respect the radio station, that we would come to the hood, we would come to your school, we would come to the cruise, we would do what you guys did. So it was real fun.
That sounds pretty funny, and it also not even just respect. It also makes people kind of want to be like, all right, we got to throw one hell of a big party. Let's make KMEL show up at our crib. You know what I mean? Like it probably was almost a competitive thing between parties as well.
Yeah, it was real fun. I remember we actually drove to Tahoe to the Black Ski Weekend, and we broadcast all the way from Tahoe, and that was something different for the station. To go way out of their area. We went so far that the signal didn't even broadcast, but we still did a simulcast from Tahoe, and people heard it on the station. So we went everywhere, just not in the Bay Area. We went Sacramento, Stockton, Lodi, Reno, Tahoe, wherever there was an event, man, we went.
So also during the early 90s, 91 to 93, you worked with many, many legendary individuals, and one of the groups you got the privilege of working with was the Ghetto Boys. Personally, I'm a huge Ghetto Boys fan, so I have to ask, what was it like working with them, and how did you guys get connected?
Man, I got to go back to my guy Alexander Mejia. He worked for this company called City Hall Record Distributors, and it was a West Coast distributor, and we handled California, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, Nevada, and Arizona. And my job was I was head of street promotions and promotions for the distributor. So one day I got a phone call from Michael Mack over at Rap-A-Lot, and Rap-A-Lot was dropping the new Ghetto Boys, Mind Playing Tricks on Me, and I remember him sending me the single. And I remember him telling me, Scott, I need radio on this. It's going to be a big record. So I remember going up to KMEL on Monday, on radio day, and, all the reps were in there, Chrysalis, Warner, Epic, Def Jam, all the labels were up in there. And, I was the independent. I had the Ghetto Boys, I had the Ice Cubes, I had the Mac Malls, I had the Ray Loves, I had, all this street shit. And when I brought the record up into Hosh Corelli's office and let him listen to it, he started listening to how it started off, man, and, he loved it. And next thing you know, the station added the song that same week, and next thing you know, I blew that record up out throughout the West Coast, in Sacramento, Cube up in Seattle, all the radio stations. Back then I was handling Tower Records, Warehouse Records. I was putting posters up, and I was just out there for Ghetto Boys. And I didn't really get a chance to meet the Ghetto Boys until later in my career in like the 2000s. I got a chance to finally meet them. But to start off their career and help them push their record and getting it on radio and putting up posters and talking about it, man, dude, that was the shit, bro.
Oh yeah, and that record you helped promote, man, that was the record where Bushwick actually, when he just shot himself in the eye, and that I heard that picture of that album cover was a real picture of Willie D and Scarface actually wheeling Bushwick out of the hospital.
Yeah, matter of fact, it's really weird that we're talking about this. I was just on the phone a couple of weeks ago with Mark Cerami, which was one of the co-owners of Priority Records, and he was telling me the story about Bushwick, and that Bushwick's girlfriend done shot him in the eye, and then they had somebody rush over to the hospital to get a photo. And that ended up being the photo for the album cover.
Bushwick was a very tiny guy, but he had such a heart of gold. You know what I mean? I gotta say to everybody, rest in peace, Bushwick Bill, for sure.
Yeah, rest in peace, my nigga, man, for real, man. He was a crazy little motherfucker, man. But at the end of the day, man, he had a chance to do what a lot of people are craving to do, and that's to record, make some money, and put out a record.
It was actually crazy. I'm amazed to actually be able to say this. I actually got to speak with him 7 days before he passed away. I don't know if you've seen his Instagram live when he was talking about how the hospital was doing him wrong, and you know what I mean. He was throwing his number actually on Instagram live, and you know, as a fan, I didn't really want to believe that he was gonna pass away, but he was in very rough shape. So when he started throwing the number out, he's like, "Call the number, check up on Bushwick, blow the lines up." So I wrote down the number. I looked at my wife. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst they're gonna do? Not, you know what I mean? Next thing you know, his cousin was like, "Hey, you know, where are you from?" I'm like, "Canada." And he's like, "Oh, Canada." I'm like, "I just want to send my sincere wishes to Bushwick." He's like, "Yo, you know what? Canada." Walks over to Bush. You can hear him in the live going like, "Hey, Canada's on the phone." So I got to talk to him for roughly 5 minutes, and then unfortunately, a week later, he passed away.
Man, Bushwick was a dope person, and in his own accord, and it feels, when you talk to somebody, anybody, be it an artist or a friend, and then next thing you know, they pass away, the next day, and you're thinking to yourself, God, I was like the last person to like talk to this person, man, or one of the last people, man. You have this, sense of duty and sense that the person gave, an interview or spoke to you before he passed away in his dying need. Like, he was dying and he knew he was dying, but he still had the energy to shout you out, get on the phone to his fans and stuff. And, that's a great thing. And, I know it's probably not one of the questions that we're probably going to ask, but I wanted to bring it up, on this. I was like one of the last people to speak to Roger Troutman before his demise. Roger, in 2000, I was recording an album with Spice One at Battery Studios, and I had Spice One, Too Short, Roger, Saphir, Noriega, Half a Mil, and Angie Stone in the studio at Battery Studios in New York. And we were recording, a song with Roger Troutman and producer Rick Rock. And Roger asked me one day, that day at the studio, he's like, "Scott, man, what would you do if somebody was stealing from you?" And I told him, I was like, "Man, if it's any president of any company, would fire the person." Well, next thing you know, Roger called me on the phone, and he was unhappy with the situation at Warner. He wanted to move somewhere else. He wanted new management, new relationships. So I started moving and managing Roger. And that Wednesday before he died, he called me, spoke to my grandmother. That Friday, I got him on the phone with Erykah Badu and Ward White to do his first single for Virgin Records for his new deal. And next thing you know, Sunday morning, I get a phone call saying that Roger never showed up at his studio in New York, and that he was dead. And I couldn't believe it. And I called the Dayton Police Department, and the officer at first wouldn't give me any information. And then next thing you know, he told me that Roger's brother shot him twice, and then Roger's brother went down the street, got in the car, and shot himself. And I didn't know that Roger's brother was his manager. And I didn't know that his brother had been stealing from Roger for all those years. So when Roger told his brother that he was letting him go, his brother couldn't handle it and ended up killing Roger over the advice that I gave him. So
I'm actually lost for words for that, man. But I do want to say, I wouldn't blame yourself on that, man. I don't think anybody really would have known, but I do want to say, like, my condolences sincerely.
Yeah, man. That was a huge loss for the music industry, man, and a huge loss for myself, man. I mean, to work with such an icon like Roger Troutman, was going to be, something that I could talk about. It's like almost working with Bone Thugs and Harmony, bro. He was an icon. Like a Prince almost. So it was sad, and I miss him. Love you, Roger.
Rest in peace, Roger. Most definitely. So I also have to ask, you had the opportunity to work with NWA. How did you initially get connected with NWA?
Wow. Back when I was 24, working for City Hall Record Distributors, I got a call from the distributor was handling Priority Records at the time, and um, Mark Cerami ended up giving my boss a call, and they were, putting out, the new Death Certificate, Ice Cube record, the new NWA Niggas for Life. And once again, my job was to get it on radio. My job was to get it into the retail stores, promote it, and market it. And I was responsible once again for touching, that platinum album. I mean, seeing the movie and seeing Easy pass away before the album was fully recorded, I was very emotional watching the movie. But to actually be part of letting people purchase that record and let people see the record and the songs and putting up the posters and stuff, man, that right there, man, was a dream for me, back when I was 24. And, same thing with Mr. Scarface. I mean, he came out on Rap a Lot. I have a platinum and gold record for Mr. Scarface. Mr. Scarface is back. So that whole era in that early 90s, man, working for Priority, working for Rap a Lot, I signed E40. I put out his first 5 records. I put out Mr. Flamboyant, the Click album, the Mailman album. I put out all the independent albums, man, before he got signed to Jive Records.
Wow. And I also have that, when you're talking about the Platinum Records, that was my next question. So as we already know, you worked on the End for Life album that went platinum. What was it like, sorry, my bad. What other Platinum Records do you have, other than Scarface and Ghetto Boys?
I have the Ice Cube Death Certificate. I have the Ice Cube Wicked single. I have the MC Ren Kiss My Black Ass. I have the Ice Cube Predator. No Gasoline. I have the not Predator. I have No Vaseline single. I have credit to the I Can't Deny It with Fabulous and Nate Dogg. I have the Busta Rhymes credit with Busta Rhymes and Mariah Carey, If I Know What You Want. The Busta Rhymes with Sean Paul. The Angie Martinez, If I Can Go. The Jay-Z, Dynasty, Parking Lot Pimpin', Get Your Mind Right. Squeeze First, Change the Game. So those are some of the other ones that are due credit, with me and, producer Rick Rock.
That's crazy. And when you said Death Certificate, I know this question's a little off script, but were you actually there when Ice Cube made the diss song No Vaseline? Did you get to see that creation?
No, I didn't, man. I wasn't there when, and I didn't get a chance to start meeting these artists, man, until they started coming up into the Bay. Like I remember Ice Cube coming up into the Bay at KML Summer Jam, and I was representing the label, so I represented Ice Cube. It was my first time meeting him. I met Easy for the first time, and I met Dre for the first time when Dre was with World Class Wrecking Crew. I remember meeting Dre when and Alonzo and Yella when they came up to Vallejo, California to perform. And I ended up meeting them backstage. And then with Easy, I remember meeting him in the late 80s in Oakland with Jerry Hellard. And that's when they hired me over at Macola to do street promotions. And, I already had relationships out of LA with LA Dream Team and with Rodney Ojo Cooley, Toddy T. I had Egyptian Lover, Sugar and Spice. So, people knew me and people trusted me to do what I needed to do. So I was just a little street cat, bro. And, I really didn't start getting in the studio working with artists, man, until probably, really after after probably '93, I started getting in the studio. You know, in 2000, I was in the studio with. No, that was a great session, man. It was Mike Dean, Ghetto Boys, Tila, Do or Die, Scarface, then Spice One, and then BG showed up, Lil Wayne showed up, Manny Fresh showed up, and the whole Cash Money crew. And I'm in the studio with all these people.
Holy crap. That must have been one hell of a studio session, I'll tell you that.
It was fantastic.
So also in 1998, you became co-owner and publisher of 480 HipHop Magazine. How did that come to be, and what was it like working in magazine?
Man, 480 HipHop Magazine was a leading magazine in the Bay, and we were also national too. It was originally owned by a friend of mine named Lachlan McIntyre, and you know, he ended up having some financial problems, and I ended up taking over the magazine. And I knew nothing about owning a magazine company, but I knew that there was a certain revenue base that you had to make in a certain amount of ads that you have to give away in a magazine to make the magazine. And we were a print magazine like The Source back then. We were out before Murder Dog. We were out before a lot of, magazine companies. And 4080 was instrumental to a lot of people's career. Master P, was, one of our, biggest supporters. And we supported Master P, in regards to what he did. And, it showed, the 4080 showed the hardship of artists and what they had to do. But the magazine was a lot of independent, but we had a lot of majors too, doing ad buys and interviews and things. And once again, I knew nothing about running a magazine. I think I put out maybe 3 or 4 issues. We had a label deal with Virgin Records, with Rusu Records. We had a sub-label called Rusu Records, and we did a deal with Virgin, and we were putting out compilation albums from the Bay Area through Virgin, and we were putting out compilation albums through City Hall record distributors. And then, just eventually, man, I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the energy. The magazine was losing money, and as a businessman, I just ended up just shutting down the magazine after a couple of years.
Well, at least you tried something new, you know what I mean? It's unfortunate that you had to shut it down, but at least it had a good run for a couple of years.
Yes. I mean, the magazine was in business for a long time. When I got a hold of it, it was on its downslope. And I tried to keep it going. It was, and the best thing about it now is that 4080 is now going to be on BET next year for the Chronicles story of Master P. So BET called me on the phone, and we sent them a bunch of articles and album and magazine covers of Master P for his Chronicle story. So next year, you're going to see my magazine back on television again, and I might revive the magazine and come out with 4080 Hip Hop Podcast.
That would be actually really cool to do, actually. It's a great time. Are you going to be on the show, or is it just going to be like the magazine?
No, I think what it is that I'm gonna be on the show, and then I'm gonna hire a host, and we have one of the original writers from 4080 that's gonna be part of it. His name's Eric Arnold. He's a writer out of the Bay Area, and another gentleman named Bijan, and we just really feel that podcasting is going to be really big for 2020, and we just felt that revamping the magazine into a podcast, was the best thing instead of turning it into a digital magazine.
That's true, yeah. Podcasts are like the next big thing, honestly, Maybe what you could do is maybe do like a little news flyer or something like that, like every broadcast. Maybe see how it goes, advertise it.
Right. I love it. I'm gonna take all the advice. Where we go on now, man? Because I'm loving this Illuminati.
Most definitely, man. So also, I have to say this: when you mentioned Spice One earlier, this is the question I'm excited to hear about because, like I said in the interview before, you've done almost everything in the music industry, man. Like you literally are hip hop legend. And I'm not even jerking your chain. In 1999, you became Spice One's manager. How did that come to be, and what was it like working with him as a manager?
Ooh. Um. Well, he was being managed by Chaz Hayes, CHM, which was managing E40 and some other artists, and 40 Chaz and Spice Tight, the split partners, and Spice was having difficulties with Jive Records in '99, in '99, and if a lot of people know, Jive Records made their money off of black music, but in 2000. Jive started changing their outlook of music and started going into more pop music, the Britney Spears, New Kids on the Block, all that pop stuff. And they really weren't focusing on urban black music, especially hip hop. And Jive wasn't trying to give Spice his advance. And so I spent a bunch of money recording his record here in the Bay Area. And I ended up, me, Rick Rock, and Spice One flying to New York. I played them what I had recorded for Spice and paid for, and they opened up his budget, and I got him his advance because his advance was on hold. They owed him $250,000, and they weren't trying to pay him the money. And so I flew to New York. Flew down with a baseball bat in my backpack, had the little kid bat, and I called it my executive straighten outer. I've used it on a couple of executives, pop them over the nose, hit them in the eye, break a finger or something like that when they try to call security. And I took it up there to go talk to Barry Weiss, and next thing you know, I got Spice's budget open. We recorded the album, and after we recorded it, we immediately asked for a release from Jive Records, and it was a shame because the Immortalized record was one of the best mixed albums that came out in 2000, next to Dr. Dre, the Chronic album, and even the reviews discussed it that it was a prolific album. I brought in a lot of string players, guitar players. I actually brought in real, live musicians to record part of that album. And I love that album. I'm not going to lie. Rick Rock had like 7 joints on the album. And Roger Troutman was on it. Saphir, Noriega, Half a Mil. It's just a great talent of artists that performed on the album. It was a great recording of that album.
That's crazy, you know what I mean? That baseball bat thing, though, man, you know what I mean? I gotta say, you know what? It works. It really does. Ice Cube did it. He got his advance, so I think, I don't want to encourage people to do it, but the baseball bat thing seems to work with label executives,
I mean, it's funny too because the movie portrayed Cube in the office and then going out grabbing the baseball bat and then breaking up the stuff. Where that's not really what happened. He sort of went in already with the baseball bat breaking shit up.
Oh, he went in full force. He didn't even talk.
Right. Brian Turner had a glass desk. They didn't show Ice Cube hitting the glass desk. Brian had a almost all glass desk in his office that Cube ended up smashing with the baseball bat. The guy that played Brian Turner, they really portrayed Brian as a little bitch, and Brian wasn't a bitch, bro. Brian had nuts. He wasn't afraid of anybody, and he was an asshole when he needed to be an asshole, and he was cool when he needed to be cool to write you a check.
Seems understandable, yeah. It's Hollywood, It's terrible how sometimes they can't really. There's certain things in movies where you don't even need a budget to do, but yet they won't do it. They want to try and make it more like, like Hollywood. It's sad to me, especially when you're portraying a biopic.
Right, right. But at the end of the day, I really found out, man. At the end, my friend Mark Cerami ended up telling me that after that whole situation happened, Cube left the building. Mark Cerami, grabbed the bat, hid the bat, walked down. The police showed up in the back. Police were wondering what was up with Ice Cube. Mark was like, nothing's going on, and then they eventually wrote Ice Cube a big fat check, and Brian didn't want to do it, and Mark Cerami did, the other owner, and they ended up giving Ice Cube his check, and history was made with Priority Records.
And I also heard when you said history was made that I listened to an interview with Ice Cube that Ice Cube did, and he talked about how like after that they actually put in security in the whole building.
Oh yeah, man. They had changed the front door. You had to be buzzed in. They had security because they were in the CNN building in LA, and you were able to go up into Priority really with no problem. But after the incident happened with Ice Cube, they ended up having armed security up in the building. Bulletproof glass was put in. The bulletproof door was put in. So Priority ended up, definitely changing their security aspects.
Oh yeah, most definitely. They're like, we'll pay your money, but it ain't gonna happen again. So also in the year 2000, you got to work with the legendary SIBO. What was that experience like, and how did you two get connected?
Oh wow. SIBO was in prison in Sacramento, and a friend of mine up here in Washington named Ike Palmer, Big Ikey, was doing real estate and sort of financing Bo. And when Bo got out of jail, he moved up here to Seattle, and I was brought up to Seattle to help put the project together. And so I'm in the studio helping the album get mixed down, working with the designers of the album cover, the content, and we needed a deal. So I called up an old friend of mine named Alan Becker. Alan Becker was the vice president of over there at Red Distribution, Sony, and he introduced me to Adam Levy, who owns a company called Warlock Records. And if you were a hip hop fan, Warlock goes back, back a long, long time ago. They used to have Frankie Lyman, Cadillac Record, all this acts back in the days. And so I went to Adam, played him the record, and I got SIBO and I got the Mob Figures, their deal over at Warlock. And I helped put out the first Mob Figures album as a group, and then we released the SIBO album, and it was a $250,000 deal. The deal was for $750,000, and it was a 3-album, 3-single deal. And we put out the album. The first single was doing well. Then SIBO went back to jail.
Well, after that, did you work with him after that? After he went away?
No. SIBO ended up, working with, other people after that. He's still with Iggy Palmer, with his West Coast Mafia Records, and I still talk to SIBO. Me and SIBO are still cool, and I still support him in regards to what he does. Spice One, Killer Tay, Marvelous, that whole AWOL, company. I support all them artists. I love them all.
I actually had the privilege of interviewing SIBO not too long ago, and I have to say it was a short interview, but he was a very, very nice guy, very, very easy to work with, most definitely. Well, from what I got, nice guy, you know what I mean? So also in 2008, you were honored at the annual West Coast Hip Hop Awards as a West Coast icon in the music industry. What was the feeling winning that award? What was the atmosphere like?
Man, it was great. My man Octavius Miller, he's based out of Oregon, and your show should know Seagram. He's from Oakland. He was signed to Rap a Lot, and he ended up getting, dying in Oakland. And so Octavius put together this West Coast HipHop Awards based upon his brother. And when I got honored as a West Coast icon in the music business, man, it just made me feel, it made me feel good to win an award, saying that you've been able to help out people's lives and careers, over the years, and I felt very honored, to have that. And I have the award sitting right here, and a couple years later, I was honored again as a mogul in the industry, from the West Coast HipHop Awards again, and I was honored twice.
Yeah, that was actually my next question. 10 years right after that, how does it feel? Does knowing you have 2 awards back to back 10 years, just 10 years apart? That's crazy.
Man, because I'm 52 now, and I stay relevant. I'm still in the music business. I still do consulting. I still do record deals, distribution deals, digital deals. I still deal with all the majors, Warner, RCA. I deal with Kevin Lyles. I deal with Craig Cowman. I deal with Mike Karen over at APG. Big John over at Sony, and Gazi over at Empire. I deal with all the digital distributors, InGroove, TuneCore, CD Baby, DistroKid, and I'm like a teacher in the industry. It's almost, a lot of these artists, man, they just don't have a big homie in the industry. They don't have somebody that's willing to give them some advice without having to pay for the advice, And I do charge for consulting, but that's only if you want to hire me on a regular basis, But I'm like a teacher. I give advice. I try to help out, the new generation in regards to what's happening, because it's changed. Back when we were putting out records, it was just a cassette, CD, and wax. Nowadays, you still can put those formats out, but now you have Spotify, you have Tidal, you have Deezer, you have Google Play, you have Amazon, you have YouTube, you have Instagram, Facebook, all of these different areas where you can make money at. But people don't understand is that how difficult it is to manage 156 outlets to figure out if your money is coming to you, compared to just getting a list from Tower Records or from Warehouse Records.
It's true.
It's right.
So like for instance, I run about maybe 5 or 6 just Outlaw Radio Live social. I manage the social media as well, and just doing 5 outlets is hard. You know what I mean? It's very busy. So just imagine 100 is just ridiculous.
Right, it is, and everybody is so worried about, Tidal and Spotify and streaming and things like that, man. And people don't understand that, that to make any real money, man. If you got 1 million streams on Spotify, you're bringing in about $3,978, right around $4,000, So. And the problem is that a lot of people don't know how to get their followers up. A lot of people don't know how to get those streams up, A lot of people don't know how to get on them playlists, those rap caviars and, those important playlists. And the internet has just allowed everybody to be an artist, but the internet has also allowed everybody to be scammers too, talking about, give me $30 for 10,000 streams on Spotify. I mean, bro, that's not gonna work. That $30 is not real. That 10,000 ain't real. Real streams don't pay you. Real fake views don't pay you. Fake streams don't pay you.
Exactly. That's a perfect point. So one last question I have for you tonight. What's next for like Scott Gordon? Like, other than the podcast and the BET, what's next? You got anything else cooking?
Right. Well, I have a artist producer that I've been working with out of Atlanta. His name is Young Treasure, and he's been doing really well. Just got finished working with Stevie Stone over at Strange Music. Just got submitting some tracks over to Megan Thee Stallion for submission, and he's just been in the studio. He just released 2 new singles on Spotify. I have a book that I've been writing the last couple of years. I just been offered a movie script on my story, and I've been talking to the script writer about that, and basically it's a movie about everybody who I've touched and helped out in the music industry. So those are the things that I've been involved in, and just raising my daughter. I'm a single father, and I've just been raising my daughter. She's getting ready to graduate high school this year, and that's a great thing.
Man, that's what's up, man. And so I have to ask, Scott, this is the time during the interview that I have the artist or individual that comes on the show a chance to give shout-outs to whomever they want to give shout-outs to, and also their social media handles. That way our listeners can follow you if they're not already doing that.
Okay. Well, there's a couple quick shout-outs. Once again, to Young Treasure in Atlanta. I know he's listening. To my girl, and her friends that are listening here in Seattle. My people back in the Bay, Nacogdoches, Dave Dennis, man, Funky Chicken, Rick Ross, the producer, Alexander Mejia down in L.A. Like to give a quick shout out up here also to Fillmore the Don here in Seattle. He's a promoter. Con Love, the ARS Records, just everybody, man, that has helped me out and been around. Search, I just spoke to Search, just a couple of weeks ago, man. I was there with him at the beginning with Third Base, and I want to give a shout out to everybody that's listening, all the listeners, man, on Outlaw Radio Live. DJ Immortal, give you a big shout out, man, for allowing me to talk to your listeners and to let people know who I am. And if people want to get a hold of me, they can go on my social network. My Instagram is The Music Pro, which is TheMusicPro. You can get me on Facebook, Scott Gordon. You'll notice me. I have a bunch of platinum gold records on my social media. And on my social media, you guys can get me also via cell phone through my social media or email me. I try to answer all my questions or people that send me stuff. Man, I just appreciate it, man. I appreciate this opportunity, man. I really do. I really enjoyed the interview.
Thank you very much, man. I greatly appreciated that interview as well. I enjoyed it as well. So many new things I've learned that I never thought I would. So I want to say thank you so much for coming up on Outlaw Radio Live, man. It was an absolute honor and a blessing. Anytime you need an outlet to promote anything, just hit me up on Facebook. I got you, Scott.
Hey, I appreciate it too. Oh, shout out to Nacogdoches, the Gumbo Mix. That's one of my other companies. I own one of the oldest mix companies on the West Coast called the Gumbo Mix DJs, and you can get us at www.gumbomixonline.com. We have over 180 mixes that you guys can purchase, and man, I'm still doing it. And I just tell everybody, man, don't give up. If I can get a platinum record, you can get a platinum record. If you can start a radio show, anybody can start a radio show. The opportunity is out there for success. And it's people like you, Illuminati, that's allowed me and the other people on your show, man, to look at your station as an outlet to the community. And I appreciate it, everything.
You are most certainly welcome, man. Like I said, it was an absolute honor to have you on. I'm just a fan. That's what I am. I'm a huge, huge fan of real rap music, and that's my goal, is to help keep real rap music alive. So, Scott, thank you so much for the compliments, man. I'm glad you enjoyed the interview. Thank you so much, and I do want to say, Happy holidays to you and your family, man. You have yourself a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy holidays to everybody. And you know what? Scott Gordon is up out of here.
Peace.